Why do you think the pandemic has made intimate partner violence more common and more severe?
Well, it's very simple. People are spending more time together, and when they spend more time together, there's more incidences of problems relationally. So definitely, the pandemic has increased stress in a lot of people, increased depression, increased instances of um, alcohol and drug abuse as well, which can also cause a lot of violence in relationships.
And I think, there's often this misconception that if someone's being abused, they can just leave the situation and everything's over and it's fine. But can you explain why it's actually not that simple?
Well, it's very difficult for victims to leave abusive relationships. A lot of times they develop an attachment to their abusers as much as they want to leave. They develop a lot of core negative belief systems, for one thing, which a lot of times they feel not good enough, they feel not worthy, and of course they feel unsafe at the same time. And emotionally, they're feeling very trapped, they're feeling very humiliated. And a lot of times what abusers do is they sort of hurt them in one hand and then they soothe them in the other hand. So a lot of times abused people think that their abusers will change, so they get some kind of hope, and it keeps them also in the cycle of that relationship.
And I know the pandemic, it has, limited some options for domestic violence survivors, but what are some resources that survivors can turn to for help, even if they're watching right now and still in the midst of that situation?
Well, you definitely want to call 911 if you're in extreme danger. I know that down here there's Women in Distress, and there's certain organizations that can really help you. Definitely you want to try to get counseling to try to help you build some positive belief systems, feeling better and stronger about yourself so that you can get the strength to leave the relationship and the toolkit that you need to survive what you're going through. So definitely look into local resources. And of course, if you're in extreme danger, call authorities.
And, intervention in domestic violence situations, they can be difficult, possibly dangerous, like you were just discussing. So how can someone recognize the signs, and is it appropriate to approach a victim if you do recognize the signs?
And that's a really great question. A lot of victims are also in denial, but they also know what's happening, but they're also in denial. So
Yeah.
if you see someone that you know that has these types of problems, you want to try to be able to talk to them, give them a space where they can talk to you and feel comfortable about it, because a lot of times in these types of relationships there's secret keeping, and again there's that loyalty to the abuser, and so it becomes very difficult for an abused person to talk. So I think just even creating that safe space to say, I'm here for you, and if you want to talk, here are some resources, or just to talk to me, and then I can kind of help guide you along to maybe a proper counselor or an action plan. And I think that's good enough for a lot of abused people, at least for a start.
Yeah. And this is something affecting 1 in 4 women around the world. So how can the conversation be reframed about domestic violence against women so that it's a higher priority to the people who can make sure there are resources out there for the people who need them?
Yeah, and domestic violence, I want to be clear, it does affect women, but it affects all genders, actually. I know that the conversation has really been about women for many years, and that is really important, but it does affect all genders. So it is important for us to keep that in mind, that it does go both ways.
Dr. Lisa Palmer, I want to thank you so much for your time here today. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely. If you or someone you know is a victim of domestic violence, please call the National Domestic Violence Hotline. We have the number on your screen. It's 1-800-799-SAFE. Now to some other stories making headlines. The search is on for the man responsible for